thank you, because this is a great opportunity and a great audience to start talking about the market advantages of food safety certification. Sometimes we get on these webinars and we just talk about all the food safety practices, but there are some really good reasons to pursue a food safety certification, and that is expanding the market and potentially attaining more for the product as compared to the amount of effort that goes into marketing the product for sure. So that's what I'm going to focus on today. I'm going to touch on the difference between buyer requirements and the Food Safety Modernization Act Produce Safety Rule, because that is a question we get a lot. And then I'm going to talk about which audit to choose if you're looking for food safety certification, and then the benefits of certification. And of course, we'll talk about the resources to help prepare the paperwork for certification, and then the farm's practices as well. All right, so to start off, I want to make sure that we're clear on the difference between these buyer requirements and these market-driven requirements and regulations. Probably the biggest difference is with a buyer requirement. That is where you call an auditor out to the farm because you want them there to certify the farm so that you can sell to a new market. Whereas with the regulations, the inspector calls you and says they're coming to inspect your farm. So it's not an optional thing. It's kind of like a health inspection. They call and they tell you when they're going to show up. With the audits, the buyer required market-driven buyer requirements, a food safety plan is also required, whereas with the regulations, there's no food safety plan required. It means that these buyer requirements tend to be a higher standard than the inspection requirements. There are many, many different types of audits and standards to be audited to, whereas with the inspections, it is only one standard. It's all on the produce safety rule. Also, those buyer requirements are expensive. Specifically for the USDA GAP audit, it's $115 an hour. They charge for the time on the farm. They charge some preparation and paperwork time, and they charge for travel time. So it tends to be a $1,000, $2,000 endeavor for a small farm, whereas the inspections are free. All right, so what do they have in common? They both are laid on the foundation of good agricultural practices. So both the audits and the inspections are going to focus on using good quality water, properly using manure and compost, domesticated and wild animals, making sure that we're not picking produce that has feces on it, for example, and good worker training programs, and also having good clean and sanitary equipment, tools, and buildings. So how do you decide which audit is right for you? There are a ton of different audits, and it can be a very difficult decision until you step back and look at your market. Let your buyer tell you which audit is right for you. If you're wanting to sell into McDonald's or Publix or Subway, you're probably going to be, oops, I'm sorry, didn't mean to advance that. Okay, you're probably going to be looking at the harmonized standard. Some other buyers might accept a more basic audit, like the USDA basic GAP standard certification. Global GAP is generally considered to be the most intense and most difficult, but if you're selling to someplace like Walmart, they're probably going to require it. So let the buyer determine which audit is right for you. There's also some other considerations. These are not food safety audits or food safety certifications on the right-hand side, but definitely worth considering because of the market advantages associated with them. Sweet Grown Alabama is a membership organization. So if you meet the requirements for membership, you can use the logo and achieve a market advantage there for locally grown Alabama produce. The others are actually certifications: the USDA Organic, Certified Naturally Grown, Certified Humane for animal farms, and for Fair Trade is an environmental and worker protection standard certification. So all of these things can mean a market advantage. So you want to think about what your customers, what your buyers are looking for, and how you can achieve the best price for products. So how does certification improve business? Of course, it opens new doors. Harmonized GAP certification from USDA or from Primus will also open doors to just bigger and better buyers, ones that are more likely to pay their bills on time, ones that are more likely to buy greater volumes of produce. Also organizations like Publix, Subway, Olive Garden, those are the ones that are going to require a food safety certification. So it opens up many new marketplaces. A lot of the practices that improve food safety will also include shelf life. So for example, adding a sanitizer to a dump tank is going to cut down on spoilage microorganisms and mean that squash or those tomatoes are going to have a better shelf life than they would have. You'll have less waste overall. And so if you're splitting the market between a grocery store market and a direct-to-consumer market, you're going to have less waste overall, more product reaching both of those markets with the new practices in place. Buyers will purchase greater volumes, and product visibility, product branding is also an advantage to food safety certification because you're reaching greater markets. Okay, so transitioning into the resources are available. Alabama is really lucky to have 3 land-grant universities, Auburn University, Alabama A&M University, and Tuskegee Universities, all having strong extension programs and all offering support around attaining food safety certifications. Also, the Farm Food Collaborative, located up in North Alabama, does a lot of work in connecting farmers with buyers of produce, and they also provide one-on-one support in attaining food safety certification that would be necessary to reach a lot of those buyers. The Deep South Food Alliance, located in Marengo County, does a lot of grassroots work around providing technical assistance, including the technical assistance needed to attain food safety certifications. And the Alabama Department of Agriculture and Industries, I'll come back to them in a moment, but they do offer programs that assist with certification. I wanted to take an opportunity to plug for just a minute here 2 upcoming opportunities that we have for folks that have never gone through a food safety certification to learn a little bit more about the harmonized GAP food safety audit and certification process. We have 2 opportunities on the schedule. One is virtual on March 31st, and the other one is in person in Mobile County on April 6th. And they are the setup is the same. So it is the same class for both opportunities. We'll talk about audits versus inspections, go into a little bit more detail there. We'll talk about specifically about that USDA harmonized GAP audit, because that tends to be the most common one that buyers are leaning toward these days. We'll talk about the audit process, how to request an audit and how that will go, and other resources available to help get ready for an audit. The course is a certificate bearing course. We get a certificate of completion for either course. And for the in-person course, we're going to have lunch also. After we go through the general course materials, we're going to have some one-on-one technical assistance time available with multiple instructors. So on the virtual training, we'll be able to break into breakout rooms where you can get one-on-one assistance. So if you've been thinking about starting a food safety plan, this is a good way to jumpstart that. We'll give you a template to use, and we can actually help you start writing it on either of those days. I told you I was going to come back to the Department of Agriculture. I wanted to specifically mention that they have funding available, a cost share program to help with food safety certification. And they have a very robust farm to school program that accepts any of the food safety certifications. And I know they're actively looking for more Alabama grown produce for multiple programs that they have. So the contact information is there on the screen, but I'll say it, you want to email Don Wombles at agi.alabama.gov. All right, so to wrap things up, of course, I want to emphasize that the foundation of food safety certifications and regulations are good agricultural practices. So just using those safe food safety practices. And we really would love to see you at Zoom or in-person trainings that we're hopefully going to be doing more of this year. And readiness is key to reducing audit costs and increasing success. They are really expensive. So let us help you get ready for that. So if you have other questions about buyer requirements and audits or inspections or anything to do with produce safety, you can reach out to me or our produce safety specialist, Camila Rodriguez, and that information is on the screen. So thank you. Are there any questions?